Imagine working 40 hours a week for multiple jobs and having to return home to your family with heartbreaking news that they'll have to miss out on yet another meal. All of this work that you did, and still it is not enough to live off of because the minimum wage is so low. I'm sure many of you don't even have to imagine this because currently Louisiana utilizes a federal minimum wage of $7.25. I'm also sure that we can all agree that this is nowhere near enough to live off of. The federal minimum wage should be raised to an amount higher than $7.25 to allocate for the true cost of living. The federal minimum wage has been $7.25 since 2009. This amount has not changed in many states such as Louisiana, Wisconsin, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. While the minimum wage remains stagnant, the cost of living increased dramatically in these states. This alone does not add up mathematically. If the minimum wage was barely enough to live off of in 2009, when the prices of everything were much lower, then how can it possibly be enough in 2024 after so much inflation? The answer is, it isn't. According to the article, It's Time for Louisiana to Raise the Wage, published April 2022 by Jackson Voss, over the last 13 years, increases in the costs of living have eroded the purchasing power of that $7.25 by about 25%. This statistic shows that $7.25 purchases a lot less than it used to. It shows that if the cost of goods go up, then it only makes sense that the minimum wage would go up to be able to afford those goods. People also acknowledge their need for an increase in pay. Most people agree that the minimum wage should be raised. According to the article, Gob's Disdain for Workers Evident in Paltry Minimum Wage, published January 10th, 2024 by Capital Times, 55% of Wisconsinites support raising the minimum wage, while 39% don't. This statistic shows that more people support raising the minimum wage than people who don't. Most people acknowledge that the minimum wage is not enough to live off of. But the only reason the minimum wage has not been raised is because, in the eyes of the government, the opinions of powerful businesses are what matters the most. Businesses obviously don't want the minimum wage to raise because it would decrease their overall revenue. According to the same article listed above, but in this legislature, the public's opinion takes a backseat to the opinions of powerful business lobbyists led by the campaign financing juggernaut Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, to which many GOP legislators are indebted. Most businesses get what they want because they hold more power with the government. A lot of legislators are indebted to these powerful businesses, so they have to listen to the wants and needs of the businesses. It is heartbreaking and unfair that people who aren't affected by poverty are the ones that get to make the decision on the minimum wage rate. The solution to this issue is to raise the minimum wage to a livable amount. I'm not saying to raise it to an extreme amount. All I'm arguing is that the minimum wage must be raised to be enough to live off of. According to the article, It's Time for Louisiana to Raise the Wage, published April 2022 by Jackson Voss, most advocates have set the goal of lifting the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This amount is not an extreme amount, and it would be enough for people to live off of. I say that it is a reasonable price. People must also make their voices heard. They must protest and vote on laws about the minimum wage so that they can make an appropriate amount of money from the work that they do. This is a collaborative effort. The government must be willing to listen to the people, and we must make our voices heard so that we can come to an agreement on what the minimum wage should be. Imagine what Louisiana would be like if people were making a livable amount from their jobs. There wouldn't be as many people homeless or struggling to eat every week, and people would be much happier as a whole. According to the article, Does Money Buy Happiness? Actually, yes. Published February 12, 2024 by John Jennings, larger incomes were robustly associated with both greater happiness and greater life satisfaction. People are happier when they don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. They're also happier when they don't have to fear that they will not be able to eat each and every day. If we don't increase the minimum wage, the people of Louisiana and other states will continue to struggle to live. People's lives will be riddled with sadness, disappointment, and stress. In order to change this, you and I can vote on laws that regard this issue. We can join protests and send letters to local legislators. As a whole, we must make our voices heard. We must try to do things to spark change. Because, as a famous country singer once said, the cost of living is high and going up.